Zoom out a little more and you can see this plot of land. It was originally meant for housing, but in 2023 it was rezoned to clear the way for the construction of data centers instead. Prince William County already has over 70 data centers, but if this master plan for a data center opportunity zone is fully realized, together with Loudoun County to the north, they'll have more data centers than Russia. What is that?
Oh, deja vu.
What did you just say?
Nothing, just had a little deja vu.
What did you see? What happened?
A black cat went past us, and then another that looked just like it.
How much like it? Was it the same cat?
Might have been, I'm not sure.
Switch, APOC.
What is it?
A deja vu is usually a glitch in the Matrix. It happens when they change something.
Oh my God.
Let's go.
Nobody move, there's blood. And I can't find my heart.
Today is Tuesday, September the 16th, 2025, and I decided to jump on camera for this video just to confirm that it is me. I'm still here. This is still my voice, and I have 5 fingers on each hand, and I also can write a message, although it'll be backwards. Just to confirm that I am real, which of course is relevant to this video. I've been very concerned about families this month. It is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, and so there's a lot of that on social media. But there's also been a lot of gun violence and a lot of negative inflammatory commentary on social media as well in response to that. And I would never condone violence in response to an opinion. But people have become very vocal, and some of the conversations are productive. But of course, there are always those bad actors who enter the space and who create a climate that can become uncomfortable at a minimum and unsafe in some of the more challenging circumstances. And so I wanted to do a video today primarily to talk about the implications of AI on families and relationships, especially men in their roles as providers and protectors for their families. And this issue is historic. There are cycles of, there being some kind of innovation, and then the innovations are industrialized and commercialized, and people put in the manpower to demonstrate how to get whatever it is made or created, usually at a low cost to do that. And then once there is a effective method to produce something in an efficient way, then people are outsourced, they lose their jobs, plants close down, and families suffer as a result of that. So when you ask the question, why was there no man, from Isaiah 50, which is a scripture I quote a lot because it's very relevant in understanding the nature of God, or the God that people worship, which is another conversation. Christianity is another conversation that has really flared up on social media, and people questioning their faith and so on and so forth. That you have to be willing to seriously consider what all the problems are, what all the issues are that create an absence of men in their capacity to be able to protect and provide for their families. So I want to start this video with a post that I wrote that I titled Political Violence and Religious Accountability, which I was motivated to write based on the kinds of things that I've been seeing on social media, which have also continued into this video today. So let me start there. The post reads, "This message is inspired by the events in recent weeks that helped to remove the illusion of separation between church and state. This isn't new. The trial of Jesus involved two courts, neither of which believed he should be condemned. People like to make Messiah comparisons without considering all of the circumstances that perpetuate this pattern, so let me help with that. Political violence is considered a higher violation of safety because of the kind of loyalty politics and elected officials require to maintain the system of government as it has functioned since its inception. The United States was a coalition of people not native to America who founded their own government amongst natives. Democracy is for the privileged members of that self-governed, alliance-based nation, not every eligible voter. You first had to be part of the Union. Now you have to accept the federal government as the sovereign authority of centralized governance and the Christian church as the moral authority. Jesus wasn't a Christian. The Messiah is a Jewish ideal. Just wanted to throw that in for context. The killing of individual civilians or even mass shootings are not viewed the same as politically motivated violent crimes against elected or appointed officials. These are the people who set regulations, enforce them, and then hold people accountable according to the law. There are specific codes for violence against these officials, which are different from penalties for the same acts of violence against anyone else. That's not equity and accountability. When you hear crime statistics, especially those involving incarceration, there's a persistence in disparity data that focuses on minorities. If you look at all crime data, including civil crimes punishable with both fines and incarceration, you'll find a much higher percentage of criminals who are not considered minorities. They simply do not go to jail for their crimes. It's a different perspective on the question, who commits more crime? And the statement, people who are incarcerated broke the law, otherwise they wouldn't be incarcerated. In civil cases, if you can pay the fines, you often won't do time. That's not equity and justice. Speaking of death, let me ask a question related to the Christian belief in a resurrection. Do you understand why the people persecuting Jesus at the time of his trial wanted him crucified? It was neither the governor nor the high priest who ultimately condemned him. They both left it up to the crowd of irrational people stirred up by the church to hate an innocent man. What was his crime? The people were given the option to free Jesus or Barabbas, who was a murderous but charismatic leader sentenced to death for his crimes. They chose to free the murderer. Why did the lower church feel so threatened they would collude with an oppressive government and plot to have Jesus killed? The answers are in Mark 5, verses 1 through 20, Luke 8, verses 26 through 39, and John 11, verses 45 through 57. It takes a group of really sick people to preach the coming of a savior, Messiah, and then when evidence that help has arrived is clear, you then plot to kill the person to protect business. Is this a problem that started with Jesus? Did the problem end in the biblical time of Jesus? How many times can you count in your own lifetime that this has happened? A person arrives who understands the problems, provides meaningful instructions for the kind of change needed, and then demonstrates, not just talks about or debates, how to carry out the instructions, actually helping and healing people. And then they are martyred. The martyring is followed by a lot of outrage, grieving, and guilt. Then people fall right back into the same business of politics, apathy, and prayer for a savior. Why? Here's a warning for Christian influencers. Matthew 25:32. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Everyone will be judged. Everyone. Everyone will receive everything they deserve in equal measure, one way or the other, 100%. Revelation 12:17, the dragon is defeated and gets really annoyed about it. A rebrand won't change the outcome. Not for supremacists, not for Christian nationalists. When you heal better, you see and hear differently. Thanks. I'd now like to share a clip from a 1960s documentary titled The Southern Negro as a testimony for the patterns that we are exploring here around innovation, industrialization, and then marginalization. I'll then follow that clip by a clip from a recent panel discussion on AI and its economic impact on both finance and the labor market.
Reverend William Diggs was born in South Carolina and grew up in rural York County. He's the son of a minister, and after graduating from several colleges and doing some college teaching, he finally succumbed to his home training and went to Rochester Theological Seminary in Rochester, New York, from which he graduated in 1955. He teaches at nearby Friendship College and serves a Baptist church in York.
Basically, I feel that all of the Negroes want what will come to them by the Supreme Court decision. Yet at the same time, they are not too eager to express it. And that's because of much of the intimidation that we have known to go on in the South, even to the point of view of violence, bombing of homes and even the taking of lives. This in itself has a tendency to destroy them. And it makes, should I say, it takes a far more brave individual than just the ordinary person to come forth and express himself in such times as these.
There have been people, who think that your people are just being stirred up. You think this is truth?
Well, I definitely don't feel that's true. Oftentimes I hear it said that Negroes from the North, or maybe Yankee whites, etc., come down and stir up peaceful relationships that have existed in the South. But actually, the relationships have never been peaceful, as you might say, in the true sense of the word. It has meant that one group has been subordinated, oppressed, and suppressed. And I'm positive that no man likes another man's foot being on his neck. But yet he might come to the point where he realizes that there is no need to say anything about it, or at least he might feel that way about it, you see. But I'm positive that with the opportunity coming, that a far greater proportion of our people than people do will take advantage of it. Yet I will admit at the same time that my people have been indoctrinated, you might say, over the years, to the point where maybe many of them might, or at least act as though that being relegated to an inferior position is the role that they are to take. Yet basically within them, they don't feel this way, and they can be aroused to that point. We must act within an evil situation, and in acting within the given situations, it means that we must choose the best within it. And sometimes the alternatives are evil, you see, so you must choose the less or the least of the evils within the situation.
Mrs. Wilform believes that if her children have the qualifications for the job they want, they'll get the job. Some Negroes have had experiences which make them a bit more skeptical. Reverend Clyde Jenkins is a pastor of 2 rural churches in York County. He was born in York, was taken to Florida at the age of 7, returned to visit, found a wife there, and has lived in York since 1946. From 1941 to 1944, Mr. Jenkins served our government so well as a construction worker that he finally became a supervisor and was deferred from the drafts. But when he was transferred from Florida to California, the men working under him turned in a flood of grievances. He transferred to Knoxville, Tennessee, and could not get into the Union. He gave up and volunteered for the draft. Dr. Patrick asked him if the grievances in California had anything to do with his being a Negro.
Did your race have something to do with the grievances in California, too?
Oh, yes, that was definitely.
Were there some white workers under your supervision?
Oh, yes, there were. Truck drivers and neighbors.
Why did you turn to the ministry then? Why not some other profession?
Well, I grew up in the church, and I always liked working in the church. And religious experience meant an awful lot to me.
What do you think is the single most important thing in life?
Well, I think the most important thing in life, for most people, is to be able to share in the and all things that goes to make life complete, to make life pleasant, happy, and comfortable. That is to be able to as any decent citizen would like to do is to have the opportunity to participate in all the things that are qualified, things that are constructive, things that goes to make up a community, to share in the functions of that community. Government, voting and voting, and being able to hold a position, important position in the program of the government, city, county, state.
Oh, I see. You mean hold elective office?
Yeah, hold elective office, and to really be a part of the total program.
You feel at the present time somewhat cut off from the total picture?
Well, in my position, I just think that members of my race I feel the same way. You see, they make any individual feel too good about it. Well, you never do that. Regardless of your qualification, you can only hope for certain things. A certain solution.
So you feel that you're not really participating in the mainstream of American life?
Yeah.
What's the role of the church in this?
The role of the church? Well, we took the Father of God and the brother who is there. We don't feel that if we can really, the church can be successful in converting individuals to the true principles of Christianity. Well, they really practice the brotherhood, man. We feel that no brother would deny his brother the opportunity to, and it seems that he's really qualified to share in because of his racial identity. To go people together and to get them to understand, to really believe in the teachings and practices of Jesus Christ. You say one individual might say, well, I believe in democracy. Well, when he realized that the democracy really means to tolerate and to accepting another individual's idea, although it may conflict with my idea, you see. Well, then he may be, he may feel that, well, he doesn't really believe in democracy after all, you see. But to say it and really practice it is really a different thing, you see.
To say that one believes in democracy and to practice it are indeed two different things.
Oh, déjà vu.
What did you just say?
Nothing, just had a little déjà vu.
What did you see?
What happened?
A black cat went past us, and then another that looked just like it.
How much like it? Was it the same cat?
Might have been, I'm not sure. What is it?
A déjà vu is usually a glitch in the Matrix. It happens when they change something.
Once I'm not gonna capture this, I'm gonna fall behind and never come back. So, Roger, you handled post 9/11. This was an absolute shock to the economic system. Right. This would be a shock, but the other way around potentially. Putting on one of the many hats that you have, how would you look at this on the policy side, on the government side?
So let me pick up exactly the line of questioning that you're driving. I think it's sort of a fool's errand at this stage to try to put a number around the impact. So imagine if we were here 150 years ago and somebody said, well, what's the impact of electricity? What's the impact of the Industrial Revolution? I think this is actually that transformative, to be very clear. Okay. In economic terms, we're going to say we're going to have a massive supply shock, which is potentially a good thing, but it is a double-edged sword. Because, as we all know, supply shocks mean there will be individuals who are put out of work and there will be brand new jobs created. It's similar to what happened when we had an agricultural revolution in this country. We had about 85%, 90% of Americans at the time of the revolution were working in agriculture. We had the agricultural revolution, mechanized everything. We can now feed the world with 2% of our population. That was both good and bad, right? If you were a person who was in the business of being what's called a farrier, i.e. putting horseshoes on horses, you were out of work. If you were a person who was learning how to manage mechanisms, a harvester or something, that you had a new job. And so that's the challenge that we're confronting. And I think the ultimate answer here is when you see this kind of major shock, we're going to have to rethink some of the elements of capitalism. So I'm going to take this to a much higher level. Because every time we've had a shock, capitalism itself has been forced to rethink how it goes. So first we had the Industrial Revolution, that created capitalism 1.0. Then we discovered there are bad things about capitalism 1.0. Children working in mines, tainted food, tainted pharmaceuticals. So we had capitalism 2.0. In the United States, that's most closely associated with Teddy Roosevelt and progressivism. A genius of a man, very complex, created a whole new way of thinking about how the US capitalism system should work. And all of a sudden we had the FDA, we had the SEC eventually under his cousin Franklin Roosevelt, we had Social Security. So we created ways for capitalism to keep evolving as technology evolved. And now we then had capitalism 2.1. Jimmy Carter, then Ronald Reagan came in and said, we need to streamline the amount of regulation we have to allow the US economy to continue to grow and flourish. And that, I think, unleashed a massive amount of creativity in the US economy. And now we're on the verge of capitalism 3.0, which is going to respond to this set of questions, which is the big supply shock that's coming from AI will change the way jobs are done, create new jobs, but unfortunately also eliminate other jobs.
Roger, do you think we need a new cabinet secretary?
Do we need a new cabinet
I'm just
secretary?
staying in line with what you're saying is possible, right? And how
look,
big
so I think to be fair, we don't know what we need. Just as, when Teddy Roosevelt came in, he had this broad concept and we tried lots of things. So I think by the time we meet here in another 5 to 10 years, we'll have a brand new way of organizing work. We'll have a very different view about things like Social Security. We'll be talking about things like universal basic income as perhaps perfectly normal or rejected. We'll be thinking about how we manage a world in which maybe, to your point, we no longer are driving cars. I'm a big believer in Waymo, to be very clear.
We'll be flying.
Flying, possibly. And so I do think we're going to have to really rethink our frame of reference for organizing the economy. So I think this supply shock from AI is actually about as big as what we saw at the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, information, and now this is a new one.
Quick reaction from the panel, quickly.
Well, I mean, I just think if we're on the economy piece, one of the interesting things is where have we grown? Where have we gotten productivity? In the first instance, in that early stage, it was physical labor, and how did you create basic machineries for physical labor? Then we had the transaction economy. You saw a lot of that in banking, in particular with all the transactions and what you saw in the back office. What's really fascinating from an economic perspective is generative AI has tipped the scales on a class of labor, knowledge work, which we actually haven't seen technology address at such scale. So the ability to address the full economy, I think, is pretty profound. But I think something Jensen said is really important as we think about how we design for the future, which is right now, and I actually usually am the most passionate person, but I think you win this contest and the most optimistic. I'm going to be a little bit more cautious. I think what we see is that people are using the technology to do current work better, faster. That is not where you get any exponential gains. You will start to see the exponential gains when you say, if I were, as Jensen said, if I were to design a chip from scratch, if I were to think AI native and design how work gets done, how would that work? Not an activity, but the actual full work. And that is where we will start to see a more dramatic shift. Absent that, you've got a lot of technology and not the type of usage that brings in any trillions of dollars.
Yeah, I think the only other point I would add is, we're at a place where our technology has surpassed our legislation and our morality. And we're entering new territory where generative AI is actually creating a new understanding of our reality, some of it which is based on, fabricated information, right? So it's no longer fake news, it's kind of fake truth. And we have to deal with this complexity in ways that we haven't before, and it's going to take us a minute to unwind and understand what this means.
Yeah, so I just want to comment, and I agree a lot with my colleagues and what they're saying, but I think the exponential growth of AI is so unprecedented. We haven't seen it during agrarian transformation or the industrial transformation and services. It is just unbelievable. Every 7 months, you have massive improvements on compute. Every 7 months, there are improvements in algorithms. Every 7 months, we have new massive amount of data. We have new types of roles, new capabilities, new ways of solving problems, new business cases. Exponentially, every 7 months or 8 months, it is just growing by leaps and bounds. So nobody's prepared. And I think you have to work together, the public sector and private sector. In order to get it right, you need large companies, small businesses, and governments working together. I just come back from a meeting with the Prime Minister of Estonia. I spent some time in Estonia. And Estonia doesn't have actual people, we're very few, if any, in the federal government. All of that is automated. All of that is digitalized. And yet, they're extremely efficient. Yet, they're somehow been able to protect the population, making sure the population is not only aware of AI, but are using AI everyday life. So I think for us to be successful, to make sure that everything that we spoke about today, it actually comes to fruition, we have to improve our education, both in universities and enterprises. And this is not just a job for private sector. This is a job for private sector and the government. And we haven't done our job. We're failing our population. Right now, population and students are failing. They don't know what the next job is. I don't know what to tell my daughter, 16-year-old, what should she be doing? What kind of a job? And that puts a lot of stress, anxiety in the system. We have to spend the time now, all of us, in this room, throughout the country and the world, and figure out where the next opportunities of jobs are going to come from. Space industry, quantum technologies, what's going to happen? Because if we don't have the right formula, economic framework, we will definitely falter and we'll fall behind. And even though the companies are going to do great, right, maybe some governments, people are going to fall behind.
So, since we're in the anxiety space for a moment, and you rarely see Jensen flummoxed or stutter or not get his answer absolutely clear and clean. But when he was headed to D.C. and he was sitting there, and the few times that he was wearing a tie, he was asked, so are we ahead or behind China? Mm-hmm. And whatever that answer is from all of you, so what? What's the next step? What should be done? Ahead or behind China? Could
I jump in and pick up on one of the points here that's really important, which is the speed of transformation? Yes. So I introduced the agrarian revolution, industrial revolution. All those things, to your point, took 25 to 50 years to play out. And I agree with you. This one seems to be playing out in a matter of quarters and a much smaller number of years. I've seen on some of the boards I've on just massive adoption to this technology. And so
are they doing it well?
Very good point. We should think about...
Are they doing it well, Roger?
I'm sorry?
The massive adoption you're saying, is it...
It's the speed of adoption. It hasn't been massive, but what I've seen is this is a first technology that can be done, as Jensen said, by anyone in this room.
Yeah.
It does not have to be intermediated through the IT department, bringing out hardware and software and networking, all of these things. We already have the networking capability. We already have smartphones. We have our Pixel phone or whatever the phone may be. And so now what's very interesting about this one is the ability for the relatively average person to start to be a programmer, as Jensen said, and to use AI. And so the process of adoption is moving much more quickly.
So quickly, I have to ask you that. Hang on one second. So the question I've got for you, since you're talking to boards here, this is, on the board level, the word cyber is used. Now, cyber is from what year?
Cyber is from what year?
From what year? In the 1960s.
1960s.
So are they reacting well, is my point, when you're saying they're reacting quickly?
Well, look, cyber is a slightly different thing.
It is a different thing, I understand
The answer is yes, to some degree.
Right.
The thing that's different about cyber is there's an enemy force that is attempting to use it to penetrate what I would think of as the good guys.
It's more the term.
So there it's a combination of offensive and defensive, for sure. Now,
in 2025, what is reasonable to expect be provided to every person, every home, and every family to ensure they thrive, meaning they are happy, completely satisfied with their conditions and lifestyle? Healthy, meaning free from environmental contamination and have access to clean water, clean air, clean food and medicine, and appropriate, comfortable housing. Safe, meaning free from worry or fear of an inability to have adequate provision or protection. As a provider and a protector, what should that look like? What does it look like currently? And why aren't these answers the same? In order for centralization to continue, there must always be a famine at the local level requiring freight and transport of necessary goods, and then fraud, which ultimately destroys the economy and people's means to support themselves and their families. Keep in mind that the U.S. monetary system and U.S. Mint was established in 1792, less than 230 years. What did people do before there was money? How did they access the things that they wanted and needed? What do people want? What do people need? And are any of those things what we are focused on? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing the same way and expecting a different result. We must be the change we want to see in our local communities and the world around us. When you heal better, you see and hear differently. Thanks.